Welcome to Adventist Preparedness. I'm a Seventh-Day Adventist. I have a PhD in engineering. I teach chemistry at a local community college. And I wanted to go over preparedness from a Seventh-Day Adventist perspective and from a common sense perspective. And I've never done a YouTube channel or podcast before, so please help me with constructive criticism. If you can give me likes and subscriptions, that'd be great too. If you put comments in the comment section, keep it civil. I don't mind disagreement. I do mind, ungodly or unchristian or rude behavior. Okay. And one of the more important things I want you to keep in mind is here. Let's see if I can get it to work. There we go. I don't want you to believe anything I have to say. Don't believe anything anybody from a pulpit says or anybody from the internet says until you take it home and check it out for yourself. So I want you to check out what I have to say. Don't just believe me, anything I say. Okay. And again, you can tell I'm nervous. I've never done this stuff. Even though I teach, it's material that I've taught a lot before. Okay. Anyway, what is an Adventist prepper or what is preparedness in general? Are we some kind of new preppers? Are we uh, getting involved in fear porn that's pushing survival food and bunkers or stuff that's unlikely to happen, like an electromagnetic pulse, World War III? Religious persecution is more likely to happen, although in the United States it's not too terrible compared to some other countries. But whenever you mention preparedness, you hear people thinking, or people start thinking, okay, you're kind of a nut. You're going to be in some sort of prepper group that might have some negative affiliations with it, or your wife is going to be thinking, or your spouse, excuse me, it's going to be thinking, oh my gosh, he's going to want to spend a bunch of money on guns and ammo and running around in the woods wearing camo and then getting himself in trouble with law enforcement. And that's not what I'm talking about at all. Okay. Um, some of that stuff, the guns and the ammo sounds like fun. Getting in trouble with law enforcement is not at all something I want to do. So, what am I talking about? I'm talking about living in such a way that your life is better if things go wrong or even if they don't. A lot of people see preppers and preparedness as men and women that are storing up a bunch of food for World War III or storing up a bunch of food and ammo for the zombie apocalypse. Okay, although we did learn having food and water and supplies um, was helpful during the last 2 years during the lockdowns that we've had. But generally, those we don't have that happen very often. So, what do I mean by preparing for in such a way that our life is better if things go wrong or even if they don't? Right? So, why prep? Well, people are naturally concerned about preppers over focusing on really low probability events like an electromagnetic pulse, nuclear war. Earthquakes here in California are not low probability events. Big earthquakes are fairly low probability events in California. Riots, they've been too common recently. Okay, but still, pretty much where anybody lives in particular, the probability of a riot is generally low. But what are high probability events? High probability events are illness. Okay, I struggle with rheumatoid arthritis. Uh, Death of a family member. The death rate is still almost 100%. Okay, so, Enoch and Elijah didn't die. Those are the only two I'm aware of. Even Christ died, but he was raised from the dead 3 days later. Okay, but the chances of somebody in our family passing away is high probability given enough time. Job loss, we have a recession coming up. Other examples are house fires. Okay, those are low probability events versus high probability events, and the impact of these events are inversely proportional to their probability. What do I mean by inversely proportional? They do opposite. The lower the probability, generally the higher impact they'll have, and the higher the probability, the lower impact on groups of people or neighborhood that it'll have. What do I mean by that? An EMP, nuclear war, earthquake, or riots affect a wide area, affect large numbers of people, can involve large numbers of loss of life. Emergency services can be interrupted. I was in Southern California during the Northridge earthquake, and emergency services, the fire department and stuff, really didn't get out to helping people, being able to help people for several days after the earthquake. The reason for that is the fire department, the ambulance, and the police have the exact same problem that everybody else has, namely the roads are out. Okay. So low probability events like illness, family death, high probability events like illness, family member death, loss of job, house fire, etc. The impact is low. Not saying the impact on you isn't high, but the impact is low in terms of it affects a small number of people in a small area. Little loss of life, meaning, every loss of life is tragic. And what's that saying? He who saves one life, it's like they've saved the whole world. So, every loss of life is important. But the numbers of people who lose their life is, and essential services are not interrupted by these individual high probability low impact events. You get sick, that doesn't mean the fire department can't. God forbid your house burns down, the hospitals aren't shut down. Okay, so what I want you to know is um, low probability events have a high impact. High probability events have a low impact. So there are some differences. What they do have in common is they endanger or damage your systems of support. What do I mean by systems of support? I mean shelter. What do you need to survive? You need shelter, you need water, you need food, you need personal security or safety, you need energy in the form of heat or the ability to cook food or even energy to run the electricity in your home and the like. So if there is an earthquake, low probability event, high impact, what's the problem for me for an earthquake? Could knock my house down, could damage the water delivery, the water systems, could, make food difficult to get. Personal security could be a problem. The power could be out. What about something like a high probability, low impact event? You lose your job. Well, guess what? You could conceivably lose your home. It won't get knocked down like an earthquake will do it, but you could lose your home in terms of you can't make your payments, right? If you lose your job, it could be difficult to get a hold of food or be able to afford food. Could be difficult to pay for your electric bill, right? Oh, they both have um, things in common in that they both endanger your systems of support. So preparing for one, move this down, is the same thing as preparing for all of them. So, for example, if you get sick, earlier. And if it's a bad enough illness, you may lose your job or you could have really high expenses, could make it very difficult to make your house payment. If there's a wildfire, Southern California, certainly happens, could burn down your house. So preppers who are preparing for one event are preparing for all of the events because what they're doing is they're building up their systems of support and building resilience in their systems of support. For example, like I said, if you lose your job, you could have a hard time paying for food later if you don't have any money. If there's an earthquake, could knock down your house, could, they make food delivery difficult. The Northridge earthquake, if the roads are out, it can be very difficult to have food delivered to local grocery stores. And grocery stores have about 2 or 3 days worth of food in them uh, before they're out. And I think we saw that in the pandemic where there were problems. Okay. Preparing for one is preparing for all of them. Now, I'll get to something in a moment, but how much food and water should you have? If you check with, something like FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Administration, they say you should have 1 gallon of water per person in your home, a minimum of 1 gallon, and you should have, 2 weeks of food and water minimum. And I would argue if you have 2 weeks to 30 days worth of food and water in your home stored, it'll get you through about 90% of all the emergencies you're likely to run into. An earthquake knocks out essential services and food delivery, etc., for 30 days is a pretty big disaster. And something like that, they'll be sending in the National Guard or, other emergency services to come help. When you buy food and water, this is the point I'm getting to. You want to buy extra food that you normally eat, usually by a process called copy canning, which means if you have a favorite kind of soup that you like, you normally buy 2 cans of soup of that particular soup per week, buy 3 cans, and save that over towards the back. If you happen to like top ramen, top ramen and hot sauce can go a long ways, right? If you normally buy X amount of top ramen, buy X amount plus a little extra. Don't go spend $2,000 or $3,000 on MREs and freeze dried food and a whole bunch of food that you've never eaten before, or buying rice and beans if you don't eat rice and beans. Okay, it's good to have that stuff. It's good to learn to use that stuff. For starters, don't buy a whole bunch of food that's expensive all at once, stuff you don't eat and you might not ever like. Okay, you want to build up and have a deep pantry of food that you normally eat, where you build up to having 2 weeks, first 2 weeks, then a month. You can go more if you want, but for 2 weeks, then a month. And do that by buying a little bit extra every time you do it. Okay. Now, what's the next point I want to get to? Let's see if I can. PowerPoint's going to work for me. Okay, it seems to be working for me. I'm not all that great at PowerPoint either. Well, how does this? I mentioned earlier you want to make your life better. Things go wrong, or even if they don't. Because if I'm okay, we resolved the issue of prepping for a low probability event like an EMP or a nuclear war, good chance surviving one of those, right? Or, zombie apocalypse. So, okay, I've learned that if I prepare for low probability events, like, if I prepare for high probability events, like job, illness, I'm building up my systems of support. For example, I started talking about water, having extra food and water. Prepares me for low probability, high impact events like a war. Okay. But isn't that just going to be food that I have sitting around that, um, I'm just waiting for something bad to happen and I'm constantly thinking doom and gloom? No, that's not what I'm talking about. First off, if you buy food that you normally eat and you buy extra and you have a month's supply of that and you rotate through that, then it's money you would have spent anyway. Okay, because you have to eat 3 meals a day or two, whatever. Okay, but you have to eat, and if it's food that you would normally eat, then it's money you would normally spend. But you could also save money doing that because you buy a little bit extra, or if you're able to buy some in bulk, you can do that. But the other way that it makes your life better, even if things don't go wrong, is one, if you buy extra food prices have gone up like crazy, right? I don't know I don't know about you guys, but I saw a flat of eggs that used to cost $12 at the local grocery store about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. Now it's close to $20 for the same egg. So that's what. So if I were to buy extra food and have a month's supply of food sitting around, I'm buying it and I have it now. In a way, I'm beating inflation if I have it now. I don't know about eggs, how long they'll last. If it's food that for a long time, like if you do eat rice and beans, then you can have that stored and that'll last a long time. And so you save money by beating inflation. You save money by, excuse me, you also save money by buying in bulk if you do buy it in bulk. Another way that most people don't realize is that if you have a month's supply of food or 2 weeks supply of food in your pantry, you save money now because you can afford to wait for sales and buy on the dips. What do I mean by that? Let's say ketchup, right? Let's say you really like ketchup and you go through, I don't know how often people go through a bottle of ketchup, okay, but let's say it's a bottle of ketchup a month. If you slowly build up to and have 3 bottles of ketchup sitting in your pantry and you finish off a bottle of ketchup, you don't have to, and you really want the ketchup, you really don't have to run out and buy the ketchup today or tomorrow and buy it at whatever price it happens to be. You see this little curve that I have here? Looks like a sine curve. You don't have to buy exactly when you run out. If you have a month's supply of food, you can afford to wait for the sales, double coupon day and sales, and really save money by constantly being able to wait and buy on the dips. So, in addition to preparing for high probability, low impact events like illness or job loss, which also prepares you for low probability, high impact events like earthquake, wildfire, war, something like that. Okay. So not only you are prepared for those events by reinforcing and building up your systems of support, and you're not just waiting for something bad to happen, right? You are now actually saving money because you've built up to a 2 weeks or month supply of food. And so you can wait until things are on sale and you can use coupons or whatever else. And so now I'm constantly saving money by buying on the dips. And that's a great way to get a spouse involved in prepping too. Instead of telling your spouse, ladies, instead of telling your husband, honey, I want to go buy a new, I want to go buy a new self defense tool with a whole bunch of extra freedom seeds that go with it. Read between the lines. I mean, okay. Instead of doing that, you're able to say, honey, I want to save you a bunch of money by building a 2 weeks or a month's supply of food. And so now we can save a whole bunch of money by waiting and buying on the dips. So now we can afford to go do those things that we want to do. You know, like put it away, buy another car if you need like another car. Maybe even, go out on Saturday nights, or you can afford to help people with it. That's really what I wanted to get to at this point. Is that one of the things that you're able to do by prepping properly is not just prepare for low probability, high impact events like nuclear war, God forbid, okay, or high probability, low impact events like, um, you know what, you're able to save money by buying on the desk because of the whole pantry. Other way you can make your life better, and no, I'm just talking about food, make your life better now, even if nothing does go wrong, is you could garden. And I have here square foot gardening. I also have what many people may not have seen before is I have a bright 55-gallon barrel drum garden. Now this isn't mine. I've done square foot gardening. I haven't done the 55-gallon barrel drum gardening. But what's nice about that? Well, what's nice about gardening, first off, how does it make your life better now? First off, just gardening's better is good for you. Going out there, getting your hands in the dirt a little bit, pulling some weeds. There's just something therapeutic about gardening. Makes your life better. In addition, having a garden is like printing your own money, right? A packet of seeds is cheap. The amount of money that you can get out of it is amount of money. The amount of food that you can get out of it is quite a bit, especially if you plant something like squash. When I used to plant squash, I was the neighbor that was driving everybody nuts by giving away my squash or my tomatoes. Okay. Oh, you can, and the food is more nutritious. You know what went in it. You can have it all organic, however you want to do it. And one of these 55-gallon barrel drum, which you can build these, you buy an old 55-gallon barrel, cut holes in it, or you can cut slits in it and heat it up with a heat gun and push it out, make these little pockets. You can have on your balcony of your apartment or in your little small backyard if you happen to live in an urban area. You can grow a lot of food in one of these, or you can put one of these together for your arthritic grandma or arthritic dad or arthritic mom, and they can grow a lot of food in a small area and be able to get around and weed it out without the bending over that a guy like me would have problems with. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to get at there, and the most important thing is, and I'll cover more stuff later, but if you have extra food and water, you're more self-sufficient and independent, and then you're able to help more people around you, right? So it's not just you're living in an armed bunker waiting for the zombie apocalypse, and if your neighbors come to ask for food, you're gonna, you know, send them away or do something else. I mean, are you really gonna send a little old lady that lives down two houses from you? Are you gonna really send her away? Right? You're not gonna do that. So if something bad happens and you have extra food and water, or you're more independent because you have solar panels and you don't have to worry too much about paying for the electric bill because you have help with that from your solar panels, then you can be less afraid of job loss. You can help people around you. You can give more charity. When the Northridge earthquake happened, I lived in a small little apartment complex with four apartments on the bottom and four on the top. And the neighbors up above were a newlywed couple that had, well, not newlyweds, but newlyweds, or been married maybe a couple of years. And they had a baby that was bottle feeding. And when the Northridge earthquake happened, all the water in the area was polluted. The water in the pipes were all shaken up. Water out of the pipes, you'd have to boil it. And to feed their baby, they, in addition to breastfeeding, she had to supplement with formula. And when the earthquake happened, they didn't happen to have much water in their home, just the timing of it all. I happen to have had a gallon or two of water in my house, about the bottled water. So as soon as I found out the situation they were in, I walked up there and said, "Here, look, here's a gallon of water, you know, and that should get you by to, to be able to make formula for your baby." And I was able to really help them because what am I going to do, right? I'm going to help the baby. That's what we're here for. We're Adventists. We build hospitals, we build schools, we build clinics, and we're here to be salt and light. And salt doesn't do any good or taste any good if it's all concentrated in the shaker and stays there, right? The job is to get out and do some good. And the more self sufficient and independent you are, the less you're worried about unexpected events happening to you, the less impacted you are, and the more you're able to help others. So, I hope that kind of gets the idea across of preparing for one sort of event is preparing for all of them as best as you can because you're building resiliency and redundancy in your systems of support. In addition, it makes your life better now because you're less impacted or less afraid of bad things happening. And you're able to, for example, save money now by buying food on the dips. There's other ways to make your life better besides just that, but for example, I think of. And you're also to help others exactly the way Jesus wants us to. Your religion is in your head, but it's not in your hands, then what good is it? Right? We're saved by faith, but judged by our works. Our works do not save us, and our works do not keep us saved. Right? We're not saved by works, but kept saved. Not, excuse me, we're not saved by grace, but kept by works. Right? But we're saved by grace through faith alone in the work and person of Jesus Christ alone. The kind of faith that saves is well, let me rephrase that. It is faith alone that saves, but the kind of faith that saves is never found alone. So, anyway, that's it. I'm sorry I stumbled through this, and I hope you guys can give me some positive, constructive feedback. And if you could do a like and even a subscribe, although this is my first video, that would be really nice. And of course, if you don't want to, or it's not beneficial to you, then I understand. Even if it's not beneficial to you, if you could put a comment in there that would help, that would be great. I'd really appreciate it. So, yes, thank you very much. And remember, don't believe anything I say. Don't believe anything anybody says until you take it out, get home and check it out for yourself. And remember, it is faith alone that saves, but the kind of faith that saves is never found alone. Okay, then. Bye.